Welcome, deep divers. Let's face it, we are absolutely swimming in information every single day.
It's overwhelming, really.
Totally. News feeds, research, just, conversations. We're constantly taking stuff in.
Yeah.
But how often do we really get it?
You mean properly understand it, not just skim.
Exactly. Not just absorbing headlines.
Yeah.
I mean, really knowing something for sure, making it part of how you understand everything else. It makes you stop and think. How do we actually know anything?
Yeah.
How does our mind, our inner world, even connect with this external world that seems so separate, so out there?
These are huge questions.
They really are.
Yeah.
And today, we're going to try and unpack them.
We are.
Yeah.
And these aren't just, idle thoughts. These are the questions that really drove Edmund Husserl, a massively important figure in 20th century philosophy.
Right.
He talked about his journey as this, almost agonizing search for what he called a true method for the critique of knowledge.
Agonizing. Wow.
Yeah, he really struggled. His notebooks from around 1900 mention anguish and feeling like he was making no progress. But then around 1905, something clicked.
A breakthrough.
A huge one. A triumphant entry, he called it. He felt he had the method. And his work, these lectures we're diving into, the idea of phenomenology, they offer this really radical new way to think about how we know, not just what we know, but how knowledge is even possible.
Okay, so our mission here is to give you, our listeners, a kind of shortcut to those insights.
Exactly.
We'll dig into Husserl's ideas, his discoveries,
Yeah.
hopefully giving you some aha moments about your own perception, your thoughts, what you can actually be certain of.
And it's not just abstract stuff. It connects directly to how you experience the world.
Right. We want to get a handle on Husserl's method for making knowledge secure and really understand what that implies, philosophically speaking. So where do we start? Maybe with how we usually operate, our kind of default mode.
That makes sense. Husserl calls it the natural attitude.
The natural attitude.
Okay. It's how we function day to day, and it's even how the positive sciences work, physics, biology, history.
So what is it, this natural attitude?
It's basically our unquestioned starting point. We just instinctively accept that things are there in the midst of other things. You see a chair, it's there. You remember something, it happened.
We just assume it's all real objective.
Exactly. We make judgments, we learn new things based on experience, and we just assume there's an objective truth we're connecting with. It feels really solid, doesn't it?
Totally self-evident almost.
It does, and that's exactly where Husserl spots a huge philosophical oversight.
Ah, okay.
This natural attitude, it's great for, living life, doing science, but it doesn't question itself. It's not concerned with the critique of knowledge.
It just trusts that knowledge works.
Yeah.
That it connects to reality.
Precisely. It trusts that we can make contact with objects, that what we perceive matches what's really there. It's a kind of naive realism. It just skips the whole question of how that contact is even possible.
Or if it's guaranteed.
Right. And that unquestioned assumption, Husserl says, leads to what he calls abysmal difficulties once you start thinking philosophically about it.
And that's the shift, right? Moving from just using knowledge in the natural attitude.
To reflecting on it, the philosophical attitude.
And suddenly, bam, these abysmal difficulties appear. The possibility of knowledge, something you took completely for granted.
Suddenly stands before us as a mystery.
It's like the ground vanishes beneath your feet. So what makes it such a mystery? What are these difficulties?
Well, Husserl boils it down, initially at least, to this riddle with two main parts, two core problems.
Oh.
First, there's the problem of transcendence.
Transcendence meaning going beyond.
Exactly. How can consciousness, which is fundamentally internal, subjective, in here, how can it possibly reach out beyond itself and connect with an object that's wholly external to it?
Like the house example. I see the house, that's my internal experience.
Right. The visual sensations, the idea, house, that's all in your mind.
But the actual house, the bricks and mortar existing independently across the street, how does my internal seeing touch that external thing?
Exactly. There seems to be this unbridgeable gap, doesn't there, between the mental act and the physical object. It's like they're in two different universes. How do they interact?
Okay, that's a big one. What's the second problem?
It follows right on from the first. It's the problem of correspondence.
Correspondence, like matching up.
Yes. Even if we assume some kind of contact happens, how can we ever be sure there's an agreement between the act of knowing and the object known?
How do we know the house really is the way it appears in my mind?
Precisely. How do we know the object really is in itself the way it appears to be in consciousness? Husserl puts it so sharply. What do the things themselves care about? Our ways of thinking and the logical rules that govern them.
Wow. So maybe logic itself is just our way of thinking, not how reality is.
That's the worry. If our basic logical principles, causality, non-contradiction, are just features of our minds, maybe products of evolution, like he mentions later, how can we assume the external world plays by the same rules?
So we might never actually know if our knowledge truly mirrors reality.
It undermines everything. It's not just about being wrong sometimes. It's about whether we can ever be right in principle.
That is deeply unsettling, because if you push these problems, where do you end up?
Well, you risk falling into some really uncomfortable skeptical positions,
Yeah.
like solipsism. If I can only be truly certain of my own experiences, my seeing, my thinking, how do I know anything else exists? Maybe it's all just my mind.
The brain in a vat nightmare scenario.
Kinda, yeah. Or think about David Hume. He suggested that maybe all these things we think are external and real, this transcendent objectivity, maybe they're just mere fictions. Things our minds construct.
No independent reality at all.
Just constructions.
And it's not just old philosophy, is it? You mentioned evolution.
Right. If our intellect, our logic, is just a survival tool, a contingent peculiarity of the human species,
Developed to help us hunt or gather, not to grasp ultimate truth.
then why should we trust it to connect us to objective reality? Doesn't that just lead straight to relativism? Truth is just what works for humans.
So logical laws might just be a quirk of our species.
It's a tempting thought for some, but Husserl points out a fundamental absurdity here.
Which is?
These skeptical arguments, they have to use the very logic they're trying to dismiss.
Ah, right. You can't argue that logic is relative without using logic, non-contradiction, inference to make your case.
Exactly. It eats itself. It's a self-defeating paradox. And yet these obscure and contradictory theories, as Husserl calls them, they've tangled up metaphysics and epistemology for ages. They haven't solved the riddle.
So where does that leave us? Even our best sciences, physics, biology,
Yeah.
they can't solve this.
Not fundamentally, because, as Husserl argues, the positive sciences, despite all their successes, run into error and confusion when they try to examine their own foundations.
Why? Because they start by assuming knowledge works.
Precisely. They assume the validity of knowing transcendent objects. They assume the world is there and their methods reach it. They don't question the basic possibility of that connection.
So if existing science can't help, what can?
This leads Husserl to a really radical conclusion. Philosophy, specifically this critique of knowledge he envisions, it lies in a wholly new dimension. It needs a wholly new point of departure and a wholly new method.
A completely fresh start.
Completely. It can't build on psychology or biology or any other positive science because all that positive knowledge is exactly what's being questioned.
That would be circular reasoning, right?
Yeah.
Using psychology to ground knowledge when psychology itself assumes we can know mental states.
Exactly. You're assuming the very thing you need to prove. No, the goal here is different. It's to clarify the essence of knowledge and the legitimacy of its claim to validity. Not explain it causally, but to find its absolute foundation.
Okay, but that sounds like a massive paradox. If we have to doubt everything, all knowledge, how do we even start? Where's the first step if the ground is gone?
It does seem like a catch-22, but Husserl has this audacious solution. We must start with some kind of knowledge that is absolutely given.
Absolutely given.
Yes. Knowledge that comes with complete clarity and just precludes every doubt.
But what kind of knowledge could possibly meet that standard after everything we've just said?
Well, this is where he turns, in a way, to Descartes. Remember Cartesian doubt?
I think, therefore I am, doubting everything until you find something certain.
Exactly. Descartes realized you can doubt if the world is real, if you're dreaming, if there's a deceiving demon, but you can't doubt that you are doubting or that you are perceiving while you are perceiving.
Okay.
The certainty isn't in the object, the share, the dream, but in the act of consciousness itself.
The experience of perceiving or doubting.
That's what Husserl grabs onto. You can be absolutely certain that I am perceiving this or that, or I'm judging this or that, even if the this or that itself is uncertain. The experience is undeniable.
Ah, okay. So back to the house. I can doubt the real house is there. Could be a fake front, a hallucination.
Right.
But I absolutely cannot doubt that I am having the experience of seeing something that looks like a house.
Yeah.
That experience itself is real as an experience.
Precisely. It's directly, undeniably present to you. That's the core of what Husserl calls the sphere of absolute givenness. It shifts the focus from out there to what's undeniable in here, right now, as experience.
And this kind of knowledge, the knowledge of the experience itself, that's what it calls type 2 knowledge.
Exactly. Knowledge that is free of the problem of transcendence, because when consciousness reflects directly on its own acts, it doesn't go beyond itself. It stays within the sphere of immanence.
Immanence, staying with it. Okay, but you said that term can be tricky.
It can be. Husserl is careful to distinguish two senses. First, there's what he calls real immanence.
Real immanence.
Yeah, the idea that the object of knowledge is literally contained in the act of knowing, like a real part of it. Like the redness I see is literally a component inside my conscious act.
But how did that help? If the redness is just in my mind, how does that relate to the red apple out there?
Exactly. You're right back to the problem of transcendence, just relocated inside the head. It leads to those old representation theories. My inner picture represents the outer thing, but how? So Husserl says, no, that's not the crucial kind of immanence.
Okay, so what is the crucial kind?
It's absolute and clear givenness, or self-givenness in the absolute sense.
Right.
This is where what we claim can be directly measured by what we see without remainder. It's where doubt makes no sense because the experience is the givenness. It's not about being a literal part of consciousness, but about being unmistakably present to it, undeniable, self-evident.
The experience of red as an experience is just given.
Yes. Nothing more to question about its presence as an experience.
Okay, so if that's the certain knowledge we need, how do we access it systematically? How do we isolate it?
Through the famous phenomenological reduction.
The reduction, right. What does that actually mean, practically?
It's a rigorous mental act, an abstention. You deliberately set aside or suspend judgment on all claims involving transcendence. Type 1 knowledge, knowledge assuming an external world.
So you stop assuming the house is really out there.
Yes. And crucially, you also suspend judgment on whether you, the empirical ego, the person looking at the house, actually exist as a thing in the world.
Oh, even my own existence as a person.
As a person in the world, yes. It's not denying it, remember. It's putting the assumption in brackets, parenthesizing it, stepping back from the natural attitude's assumptions.
Why bracket the ego too? Why is that so important?
Because the ego as a person, as a thing belonging to the world, Husserl says, is transcendent and, as such, epistemologically null for this investigation. If you include the empirical me, you're immediately back into psychology, assuming a mind and a body in a world.
Which assumes transcendence all over again.
Exactly. The goal is to strip away all that psychological apperception, to ignore that it's my perception happening in my head, and isolate just the pure consciousness, the pure phenomenon of knowing.
Okay, that is radical. So, with the house example, we're not looking at my perception of the house, a psychological event.
Yeah.
We reduce it to the pure cogitatio,
Yeah.
the absolute perception, ignoring me.
Right.
So what exactly is a pure cogitatio then? Is it just any thought?
No, it's the bare, undeniable act of consciousness, the raw experiencing, stripped of all assumptions about its origin or its object's external reality. It's the having this experience bit without the I am a person or this experience is of a real thing.
It's the phenomenon of experiencing itself,
Yeah.
just as it presents itself.
Exactly. That's what's left when everything else is bracketed. Husserl believes that is the absolutely certain foundation. We're investigating what exists and remains valid, whether anything like objective reality exists or not.
Okay, this is a powerful starting point. Focusing only on these individual pure experiences, the cogitations. But a science needs general claims, right? You can't build a science just on this specific moment of seeing red or that particular thought. How do we get from particulars to universals?
That's the next crucial step. And it's another profound move by Husserl. This is the first major extension of type 2 knowledge.
Okay.
He argues that essences, or universals, can also be objects of absolute givenness.
Essences, like the whatness of something.
Exactly. Through a process he calls ideating abstraction. You start with a particular phenomenon, say, you're looking at something red, performing the reduction, so you're focused on the pure experience of red.
Right.
Then, through a specific kind of intuition, you can grasp the essence of redness itself. Redness as a universal type or species.
Not just this particular red patch, but redness with a capital R.
Precisely. And it's not an empirical generalization like seeing lots of red things and averaging them out. It's a direct insight, an intuition of the universal itself.
And he thinks this grasping of the essence is also absolutely certain.
Yes. He argues, quite compellingly, I think, it is senseless to question and to doubt what the essence of red is, provided that. One means by the word read exactly what is grasped and seen. He even asks rhetorically, could God do any more to grasp the essence of read than to just see it as a universal?
So the essence is completely given in that intuitive act.
Totally given. Same for grasping the essence of similarity between two tones, or lower-higher. These are immediately absolutely given. You're not just observing instances, you're intuiting a universal structure.
Okay, that's a huge expansion. So if we can grasp essences like redness or similarity directly, and certainly these aren't just truths based on experience, right? They're different from scientific generalizations.
Absolutely different. Scientific generalizations are empirical, based on observation a posteriori. They're always provisional. But grasping essences through ideation yields a priori truths known independently of specific experiences, just through pure intuition.
Like mathematical truths, 2 + 2 = 4.
Exactly like that. You don't prove 2 + 2 by counting apples over and over. You see the truth of the essential relationship. This is why Husserl believes phenomenology can be a science of essences, of the essential structures of consciousness and its objects. But it's not like other sciences.
Because it deals with these a priori essences, not empirical facts.
Right. And its explicit theme is the validity of knowledge itself, so it can't assume a transcendent world like other sciences do. It's purely reflective, intuitive, descriptive, not causal or hypothetical.
And this move bringing essences into the sphere of absolute givenness, this forces him to redefine immanence and transcendence again, doesn't it?
It does. The old definition based on location inside versus outside the mind, real immanence, just doesn't work anymore.
So now it's about?
It's about the mode of givenness, how completely and indubitably something is presented to consciousness.
Okay.
So he introduces phenomenological immanence, which corresponds to adequate givenness, and phenomenological transcendence, which corresponds to inadequate givenness.
Adequate versus inadequate givenness. What's the difference?
Adequate givenness is when the object is presented completely, without remainder, fully matching the intention. When nothing that is meant fails to be given, there's no hidden side, no aspect left out, it's fully transparently there.
And essences have this adequate givenness.
Yes. The essence of red can be grasped whole in a single intuition. So even though redness as a universal quality isn't literally inside your head, it's transcendent in the old real sense. It's not transcendent in the new phenomenological sense because it can be adequately given.
Okay, I think I get that. And the house.
The perceived house is the classic example of inadequate givenness. You only ever see one side, one perspective at a time.
Right, you always have to walk around it to see the back.
Exactly. You get a finite sequence of ostensible house appearances. You never grasp the whole house all at once in its entirety. It always points beyond what's currently seen. That makes it phenomenologically transcendent. Your perception anticipates more, which means doubt about the whole object is always possible in principle.
This distinction really clarifies why Husserl pushed back against that idea of evidence as feeling.
Oh, definitely. The empiricist idea that evidence is just a subjective feeling of certainty.
Like a warm, fuzzy feeling that tells you you're right.
Kind of, yeah. Husserl found that totally inadequate. He asks, how can feeling contribute to the intelligibility of anything here? For him, evidence isn't a feeling about the object. It is the object's adequate self-givenness in intuition.
So when you truly see that 2 + 2 = 4, you have the mathematical truth itself given to you.
Right. You have the state of affairs itself directly, intuitively. It's not just a feeling accompanying the thought. He contrasts this with just thinking 2 × 2 = 4 symbolically, maybe reciting it without really seeing it.
They might look the same outwardly, but phenomenologically.
They are two essentially different phenomena. One involves the full intuitive self-giving of the object, adequate givenness, true evidence. The other is just an empty intention, a symbolic reference without that fulfilling intuition. True evidence is seeing and grasping objectivity itself. That's the bedrock.
Okay, we've established this sphere of absolute givenness, including pure experiences and even essences. But let's go back to that second part of the original riddle correspondence.
Right. How knowing relates to the known object.
How does that relationship become accessible within the reduction, within this sphere of pure consciousness, especially since we've bracketed the external world?
This is where Husserl's concept of intentionality becomes absolutely central and really quite revolutionary.
Intentionality consciousness always being about something, directed towards something.
Exactly. But he reinterprets it. He argues that the act of knowing itself, the pure phenomenon given in reflection, intentionally contains the systems of appearance whereby objects present themselves to it.
Contains them. How?
Not literally containing them like boxes, but the act itself has an inherent structure of directedness, of meaning something, of presenting something as an object. This is often called his adverbial theory. Intentionality isn't a relation between the act and an external thing. It's an inner characteristic of the act itself, how the act is.
So the aboutness is part of the experience itself.
Yes. The act of referring itself to something transcendent is built into the phenomenon, whether or not the transcendent object actually exists.
Can you give an example?
Think about a round rectangle.
Which is impossible, logically.
Right. But you can perfectly well think of one. You can have the thought round rectangle. That thought, that act of consciousness, has an intentional object, the round rectangle, which is obviously there in your thought, even though it can't exist outside thought.
So the intentional structure, the referring, is present even without a real-world object.
Precisely. So even after the reduction, when we've suspended judgment about the external world, the intentionality of consciousness, its directedness towards objects, real, imagined, or even impossible, remains fully available for analysis as part of the pure phenomenon.
That really is an aha moment, because it completely overturns that old idea of the mind as just a passive, empty container.
Definitely.
Yeah.
No blank slate here.
So consciousness isn't just receiving information, it's actively doing something. It's, what did you call it? A highly complex temporal system of mental processes by which the givenness of the known object is constituted.
Exactly. Constituted. Consciousness actively builds the world of our experience, moment by moment. It's the architect, not the receptacle.
So my mind is structuring my reality as I experience it.
In a fundamental way, yes. And Husserl dives deep into how this happens. He talks about a strict correlation between the real and the intentional components of the act of knowing.
Real and intentional components, he later called them.
Noetic and noematic. The noetic is the act itself, the perceiving, judging, imagining, remembering, the actual conscious process.
And noematic.
That's the object as it is meant or intended in that act. The house is perceived, the judgment is made, the memory as recalled, with all its specific features and sense, exactly as it appears to consciousness, regardless of external reality.
So the noema is like the objective sense within the subjective act.
That's a good way to think about it. And the huge task of phenomenology, then, is to map out these correlations, to identify, analyze, and describe the various systems of presentation and representation correlated to the various kinds of possible objectivities.
So charting how different kinds of things, physical objects, numbers, values, other people, are actively built up or constituted in our experience through these noetic acts and their noetic correlates.
Exactly. It's a massive project of describing the deep structures of consciousness.
And this is where we see the sheer diversity of experience, right? Husserl shows how different kinds of objectivity are constituted in different modes of givenness.
Yes, the way things appear is incredibly varied. He gives some fascinating examples.
Let's hear some.
Okay, think about time and duration. How do you experience a musical note that's held? A sustained tone?
Well, it doesn't feel like just an instant. It feels like it lasts.
Right. Consciousness doesn't just get a single now point. It actively holds on to the immediate past, retention, and anticipates the immediate future, pertension, synthesizing these into the experience of duration. The unity of the tone and its temporal span, the now phase and the past phases are given together.
So the tone isn't literally in my mind as a part.
No, but it constitutes itself within the phenomenon through this dynamic temporal flow structured by consciousness. Consciousness actively builds the experience of duration.
Cool. What about imagination?
Imagination. When you imagine, say, a specific color, like a vivid blue, it's not a givenness in the sense of color sensation, no light waves hitting your retina.
Right, it's just in my head.
But it still appears and appears itself. It presents itself. It can be seen internally. It's given in a specific imaginative mode, even though we don't believe it's externally real. Consciousness constitutes it as imagined.
And this applies even to abstract thoughts, or impossible ones.
Absolutely. Symbolic thinking and absurdity. Thinking 2 times 2 is 4. The mathematical truth itself is constituted as meaningful, as evident within the act. Or even thinking a round rectangle.
The impossible object again.
Yes. The thought is there. The intentional object is constituted in thought. It has a specific mode of givenness, even if it's absurd. Phenomenology can describe the act of thinking it and the structure of what is thought. Precisely. It doesn't need the object to exist externally.
These examples really force you to reflect, don't they? To ask, okay, across all these experiences, seeing, remembering, imagining, thinking abstractly, what is actually genuinely given?
Yes. And what are we just adding on? What's imputed to it without any grounds and givenness?
Yeah.
How do we tell the difference between genuine intuitive evidence and just vaguely thinking about something without really grasping it?
That seems like the crucial task.
It is the core task, gaining insight into the essence of givenness and the self-constitution of the different modes of objectivity. Understanding how the object constitutes itself in knowing. Tracing all the ways things can appear, realizing there are as many basic forms of acts of knowing as there are basic forms of objectivity.
So it's this incredibly detailed, step-by-step mapping of consciousness and experience.
Yes. Mapping all correlations and forms of givenness, from the simplest feeling to the most complex scientific idea, to see how consciousness builds meaning and makes knowledge possible. It's the foundational science of experience itself.
Okay, this has been an amazing deep dive into the method and the findings. But let's just loop back one last time to that really deep skeptical worry.
The ghost in the machine.
Kind of. If consciousness constitutes the world as it appears to us, isn't it still logically possible that the real world, the world in itself, is totally different? The global deception idea. Does Husserl ever fully put that ghost to rest?
That is the ultimate challenge, isn't it? And Husserl wrestled with it immensely, especially in his later work like Ideas I. In the period of these lectures, he seems to explore a couple of main avenues without maybe definitively landing on one. It shows how tough the question is.
What were those avenues?
Well, one path leans towards a type of idealism.
Meaning the world is just consciousness.
Essentially, yes, or at least that the object collapses into its system of appearances with no remainder. The world is the coherently constituted system of phenomena. If that's the case, then the idea of a world in itself totally separate from how it appears becomes, well, maybe meaningless or incoherent. There's no hidden thing in itself to be deceived about, because world just means the world constituted in consciousness.
So no gap, no possibility of mismatch.
That's the idealist route. But he also explored another path, sometimes called a theory of rational doubt.
Rational doubt.
This argues that doubt isn't justified just because something is logically possible in the abstract. Doubt needs positive reasons, motivations arising from experience itself.
So if my experience is overwhelmingly coherent, consistent, predictable, shared with others.
And even if some bare logical possibility of global deception remains, maybe we're rationally justified in not doubting. The coherence of experience provides its own evidence, its own justification. Doubt has to earn its keep, so to speak. It needs a foothold within experience, not just float freely as a logical possibility.
So the sheer givenness and orderliness of experience pushes back against abstract doubt.
That's the idea. And honestly, scholars still debate exactly where Husserl finally landed, transcendental idealist or some kind of phenomenological realist. It shows the profound depth of the issue he was tackling. He forces us to question our deepest assumptions about reality.
It really does. It's clear how meticulous he was. So beyond wrestling with that final doubt, what's the big picture? What's the ultimate promise of phenomenology, according to Husserl?
The grand vision is huge. He sees phenomenology as the condition of the possibility of a metaphysics.
Metaphysics, the science of being itself.
Exactly, a true science of being in the absolute and final sense. By clarifying how knowledge gets its meaning, how objectivity is constituted, phenomenology provides the necessary foundation, the essential insights for understanding any kind of being, any kind of knowledge.
So it's the ground floor for everything else.
That's the ambition. For you, the listener, it means phenomenology aims to give you the ultimate norms for understanding truth and reality. And crucially, these norms aren't based on shaky assumptions or theories that haven't examined their own basis.
But on absolute evidence.
Yes, evidence drawn directly from the rigorous analysis of experience itself. It's about uncovering the essential structures of consciousness that make any world, any knowledge, any truth possible in the first place. It's aiming to be the first philosophy, the ultimate ground. Hashtag, outro.
Wow. What an incredible, really deep journey that was. From that initial puzzle about how our minds connect to the world, through the radical step of the reduction, Husserl gives us this incredibly detailed, groundbreaking way to rethink everything we assume about knowledge and reality.
It really forces a shift in perspective.
Completely. Stripping away assumptions about the external world, even about ourselves as empirical beings, to get down to that absolute givenness of pure consciousness, and then finding essences there too. It's a meticulous framework for understanding our own experience.
And how consciousness actively shapes that experience. It's not passive reception.
Right. Which leaves us, and you listening, with a really provocative thought to take away.
What if you actually tried to apply the phenomenological reduction right now in your everyday life?
Just for a moment, suspend all those assumptions about the real world. Don't worry about whether the things you see are really there or where your thoughts are coming from psychologically.
Just focus solely on what is absolutely given in your consciousness right now, the pure seeing, the hearing, the feeling, the judging, precisely as it appears.
If you did that, what unexpected insights might you uncover about how you know things, about how the world as it appears to you is constituted, what's truly self-evident, and what's just assumption?
It's a powerful reflective exercise.
It really is. A personal deep dive into your own phenomenal world. And if this has sparked your curiosity and you want to explore further,
We definitely recommend checking out Husserl's later work. That's ideas pertaining to a pure phenomenology and to a phenomenological philosophy. First book is foundational.
or his lectures on Thing in Space, Ding and Ram, where he goes into incredible detail on the constitution of spatial objects, lots to explore.
Definitely.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep reflecting.
And keep diving deep.